अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमः विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome back. So today we are going to continue the 13th chapter of Śrimad Bhagavad Gita, and we see we have already completed the first 3 sections of this chapter. The first section, that is verse number 1 to 7, where we see Arjuna's 6 questions and Bhagavan answers to question number 3, 4 and 5. That is a little bit of about Gyan, knowledge, Jnana, and Kshetrajna, that is the knower of the field and the field itself. And then in the second section we see the process of attaining knowledge, or the way to liberation, or everything about knowledge Bhagavan discussed from verses 8 to 12. And then he discussed about the knowable, that is Jnana, from 13th to 19th. Now from verse number 20 we will discuss about the answers that Bhagavan gives here in this particular section, answering to question number 1 and 2, that is Prakriti and Purusha, as Arjuna asked these questions. So we see, first we will recite the verses and we will see that how interesting this is, this Prakriti Purusha, Kshetrajna, Jnana Jnana. So we already have got the answers to questions 3, 4, 5 and 6. Now only 2 answers we will go through. Okay, so text 20. Prakritim purusham chaiva vidhyānādi ubhāvapi vikāraṅśca guణāṅścaiva vidhi prakriti sambhavān. Synonyms. Prakritim, material nature. Purusham, the living entities. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Vidhi, you must know. Anadi, without beginning. Ubhau, both. Api, also. Vikaran, transformations. Cha, also. Gunan, the 3 modes of nature. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Vidhi, no. Prakriti, material nature. Sambhavan, produced of. Translation. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So what we learn from this verse is both material nature, that is Prakriti, and the living entities, that is Jivatma, they are beginningless, that is they are eternal. And their transformations and the modes of matter are products of material nature. So we see that both are eternal. That is a very nice thing to know about. But at the same time, we have to know that both are bound. See, Prakriti is always changing. It's changeable, though it is eternal, beginningless as it is said. But it is ever changing. And sometimes they are manifested, sometimes they are unmanifested also. And Purushaha, that is the Jivatma, they are also eternal, but bound. Why bound? Because of the misutilization of their limited independence that the Lord granted in the very beginning. And they are derived from the gunas of Prakriti, that is the modes of material nature. So the elaboration is given in the next verse, that is verse number 21. कार्य कारण कर्तृत्वे हेतु प्रकृतिरुच्यते पुरुषः सुख दुःखानां भोक्तृत्वे हेतुरुच्यते. Bhogtrutve. Synonyms. Karya, of effect. Karana, and cause. Kartrutve, in the matter of creation. Hetuhu, the instrument. Prakritihi, material nature. Uchyate is said to be. Purushaha, the living entity. Sukha, of happiness. Dukkhanam, and distress. Bhoktrutve, in enjoyment. Hetuhu, the instrument. Uchyate is said to be. Translation. Nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. So hetuhu, that is cause. So Prakriti is the cause for what? For all material cause and effect. All material cause and effect. And the living entities, they are the cause for suffering and enjoying in this material nature. Sukha dukkha. Sukha dukkhanam hoktritve. So we see that the living entities, due to their bhoga vrittihi, they go through suffering and enjoyment, both enjoyment, sukham, and dukkham, suffering, in this material world. And if they switch over to yuktam vairagyam, that we discussed several times, that whatever you have in this material world, you are utilizing for the service of the Lord, then it is the perfect stage, and here the Jivatma is never bound. And we see, okay, let me read the next verse also, and then we'll continue discussing. Purushah prakristho hi bhunkte prakritijan gunan karanam guna sangosya sadasad yoni janmasu. So it is the continuation. So Bhagavan is saying that, see Arjuna, it is the Jivatma that goes through enjoyment and suffering in this material world by the sangha of three gunas, by the attachment of three gunas, modes of nature. And due to this only, as they go through this enjoyment that comes from the modes of nature, they get different births, different bodies in this material world, one after another. Dehantara praptihi. So I will read a little part of this purport given by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to this material nature. There are 8.4 million different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. They arise from the different sensual pleasures of the living entity, who thus desires to live in this body or that. So it is the desire and karma that decides the next body of a Jivatma. See? So when he is put into different bodies, he enjoys different kinds of happiness and distress. His material happiness and distress are due to his body and not to himself as he is. As he is, that is, as Atma, the soul. In his original state, there is no doubt of enjoyment. Therefore, that is his real state. Because of the desire to lord it over material nature, he is in the material world. As we said, bhoga vrittihi. In the spiritual world, there is no such thing. The spiritual world is pure. But in the material world, Everyone is struggling hard to acquire different kinds of pleasures for the body. It might be more clear to state that this body is the effect of the senses. The senses are instruments for gratifying our desire. Now, the sum total, that is body and instrument senses, are offered by material nature. And as will be clear in the next verse, the living entity is blessed or damned with circumstances according to his past desire and activity. As we just said, it is the desire and karma. According to one's desire and activities, material nature places one in various residential quarters, that is the body. The being himself is the cause of his attaining such residential quarters and his attendant enjoyment or suffering. So it is only the Jivatma who is responsible for attaining a particular kind of body. Once placed in some particular kind of body, he comes under the control of nature, because the body, being matter, acts according to the laws of nature. At that time, the living entity has no power to change that law. Suppose an entity is put into the body of a dog. As soon as he is put into the body of a dog, he must act like a dog. He cannot act like a human being. He cannot act otherwise. And if the living entity is put into the body of a hog, then he is forced to eat stool and act like a hog. Similarly, if the living entity is put into the body of a demigod, he must act according to his body. This is the law of nature. But in all circumstances, the super soul is with the individual soul, that is explained in Vedas. It is explained in Mundaka Upanishad and in Shvetara Upanishad. Very close the verses to each other. Dva Suparna Sayoja Sakhaya. Dva Suparna Sayoja Sakhaya Samanam Vriksham Parishasvajate. Ekam Tayor Anyaha Pippalam Swadatyana Ashnanyanyo Abhichakasheti. So, it is about two similar birds sitting or residing on the same tree. One is testing the tasty fruits of the tree, and the other is just witnessing. So, the bird which is testing the fruits of the tree refers to the Jivatma, who is after sense gratification. And the bird who is just witnessing is the Paramatma, the super soul. Now we see the Paramatma is always with the Jivatma. We have to request the Lord to sit next to us. As it is just said, when the Jivatma, it is said in the commentary of that verse, Dvasuparna. So, if the bird who was so far tasting the fruits, who had been actually experiencing this different kinds of fruits for many lifetimes, if he suddenly turns its face to the Paramatma, that is the bird who is still sitting on a branch of the tree, then he actually understands his true position. That is, see, by knowing the Lord, we can actually know ourselves, our true nature. So, and we can come out of the stage where we associate with the gunas and going through this enjoyment and suffering. So, we have to request the Lord to sit next to us. Otherwise, He will just sit behind, witnessing. As it is said in the next verse, we will just go through it. As Bhagavan says here, Upadrashtanumanta cha bharta bhokta maheshwaraha paramatmeti chapyukto dehesmin purushah paraha. Synonyms: Upadrashta, overseer; Anumanta, permitter; Cha, also; Bharta, master; Bhokta, supreme enjoyer; Maha Ishvaraha, the supreme lord; Paramatma, the super soul; Iti, also; Cha, and; Api, indeed; Uktaha, is said; Dehe, in the body; Asmin, this; Purushaha, enjoyer; Paraha, transcendental. Translation: Yet in this body there is another, a transcendental enjoyer, who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter, and who is known as the super soul. So here it is clearly said. So we can consider ourselves Purusha because we had little power to execute the things. And that's why we are Purusha, but tiny Purusha, in comparison to ParamāKṛṣṇakāntā, who is only the Lord. He is Paramapurusha and the Jivatma is only Purusha. And he is Upadrashta. Upadrashta. That is Dvasuparna Sayoja Sakhaya. So he is just witnessing. Sorry. And at the same time, Anumanta. He is permitting whatever we want. It's not that he is resisting directly. Yes, definitely. Sometimes it is also, but as we just said, to understand that also, we have to ask the Lord to sit just beside us. Otherwise, he sits behind and he just witnesses and grants whatever we want. But when we understand, when we realize his presence, we actually seek his permission for everything. In whatever action we are going to do, prior to that, we seek his permission. And when we seek his permission, he actually resists sometimes if that action is not permissible. Otherwise, he just witnesses and grants. So that's why Bahuna Janmana Mante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabhaha. So it's about the understanding and realizing the fact of his presence within our heart and about seeking his guidance for every little thing. And then he says Bharta, Bhokta and Maheshwara. So Bharta means the master of all. And Bhokta, we know, the supreme enjoyer. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. As Bhagavan said also in 5th chapter. He is the Bhokta, the supreme enjoyer. So this bhoga vrittihi of the Jivatma is so useless because the ultimate enjoyer is God. and God only. So this bhoga vritti, that is the tendency to enjoy, is the cause of our bondage. And we see this and Maheshwara, that is the ultimate controller, that is a supreme controller or the supreme lord. And if we follow the Ishavasya principle, that is to be satisfied with whatever is allotted for us, and not to greed and not try to snatch other people's property and other people's part, then there is actually no disturbance in this material world also. But because we don't understand this, so we are all bound in this material world, and it seems impossible for us to get rid of this bondage of material nature. And then Bhagavan says in verse 24, see, Ya evam vetti purusham prakritim cha gunih saha sarvatha vartamanopi na sabhuyo bhijayate. Yaha, anyone who, evam, thus, vetti, understands, purusham, the living entity, prakritim, material nature, cha, and gunaihi, the modes of material nature, saha, with, sarvatha, in all ways, vartamanaha, being situated, api, in spite of, na, never, saha, he, bhuyaha, again, abhijayate, takes his birth. Translation: one who understands this philosophy concerning material nature, the living entity, and the interaction of the modes of nature, he is sure to attain liberation. He will not take birth here again, regardless of his present position. So it is all about understanding the things as it is. See, as it is said here, it is all about understanding the philosophy about the material nature, the living entity and their interaction. So Purusha, Prakriti and their interaction. So if someone is aware of this, then he will surely attain liberation. And he will not come again in any form in this material world. Nasa bhuya abhijayate. So how beautifully the Lord is confirming this here. How motivating, how bold it is. See? So why? Because this is the effect of knowledge, you see. As he discussed about jnana previously also, in the last, it was Gniya, and the second section was about Jnana, and a little bit in the first section also. So this is the cause of the bondage. So if one realizes the cause of bondage, that is, it is the material nature and its gunas that is binding us, and we are actually liberated in our true position, in our true nature, then definitely we will go beyond this bondage. And that is the thing Bhagavan tries to say here. Evam vetti purusha prakritim cha gunai saha sarvatha vartamanopi nasabhuyo bhijayate. He is though present in this world, but he is liberated here only. And in that liberated state, as we just mentioned, he will act in the spirit of Yuktam Vairagyam. Okay, so the next verse, 25. Dhyaninatmani pashyanti kechidatmanamaatmana anye sankhena yogena karma yogena chapare. Synonyms. Dhyanena, by meditation. Atmani, within the self. Pashyanti, see. Kechit, some. Atmanam, the super soul. Atmana, by the mind. Anye, others. Sankhena, of philosophical discussion. Yogena, by the yoga system. Karma yogena, by activities without fruitive desire. Cha, also. Apare, others. Translation. Some perceive the super soul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. I will also read the next verse because they are connected and we have to discuss together. 26. Anye tvevam ajanantah shrutvaanyebhya upasate tepi chati tarantyeva mrityum shruti parayanah. Synonyms. Anye, others. Tu, but. Evam, thus. Ajanantah, without spiritual knowledge. Shrutva, by hearing. Anyebhyaha, from others. Upasate, begin to worship. Te, they. Api, also. Cha, and. Atitaranti, transcend. Eva, certainly. Mrityum, the path of death. Shruti parayanaha, inclined to the process of hearing. Translation. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about Him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So here Bhagavan says in these two verses, says about the process of knowing the super soul, Paramatma, the process of knowing the Lord. And in verse 25, he mentions about Dhyana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. Sankhya Yoga means Jnana Yoga, not the Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya Yoga means Jnana Yoga, that is by discrimination, by the process of discrimination. That what we are and what we are not. So we are not this body, not this mind, like this. That is Jnana Yoga. And Dhyana Yoga is the path of meditation, and Karma Yoga is the path of action, that is keeping aside the fruits of action. And acting without any fruitive desire. Sorry. And verse 26, it is said that by Shravanam, there is another process, and here it is very interesting. Here Bhagavan specifically uses this word, you see, Upasana. This is very sweet. Anye tu evam ajanantah shrutvanyebhya upasate. So they worship upasana. How? By Shravanam. So as we know, the first step of bhakti is Shravanam. And Shravanam from authentic source. That is the acharyas. Acharyas means who leaves their realization, who lives on the principles of their realizations. They are the acharyas. That is, it is not that they only teaches the things from the books. They have realized and they are applying all the principles in their own life. So they are the acharyas. So if the hearing process should be from those acharyas, that is from authentic source, and by that it is possible to realize the Lord. And as we see these days, we know very well that how difficult it is to focus our mind on a particular thing. So, how difficult it is to know the Lord, to understand, to realize the Lord through the path of meditation. And jnana also, you have to go through all the Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, which is the essence of all the Upanishads, and then Brahma Sutra. So it is also difficult. Now the third, that is acting without the desire of fruits, it is almost next to impossible. If we look at ourselves, we can see how difficult it is to act all the day without any expectation of results. If we do little thing, we desire for appreciation. And if we face criticism, we immediately get upset. So we know how difficult it is, the path of karma yoga. But see, when this karma yoga is on the basis of pure bhakti, then it becomes bhakti yoga. And that includes this upasana, what the Lord says in verse 26. So if someone is influenced by the process of Shravana, or even studies, also it is similar to Shravana. If we study from the books, that is also from authentic books, from Vedic scriptures, then also it is possible. So this is the thing what Bhagavan wants to say. That is in this section. That is, see Arjuna, it is Purusha and Prakriti and their interaction. Prakriti is the reason of all cause and effect. Prakriti is gunas, and though Prakriti and Purusha, they are both eternal, but Prakriti is ever changing, and the Jivatma, they are also bound. So due to this attachment with the Prakriti, Jiva goes through tremendous process of enjoyment and suffering eternally. And Bhagavan is the Parama Purusha, Jiva is the tiny Purusha. And Jiva, due to this attachment and with the modes of nature, with the Prakriti and its gunas, and with the enjoyment, bhoga of these gunas, they goes through the continuous process of changing the body, that is Dehantara Prapti. And Parama Purusha, who is the Upadrashta, Anumanta, Bharta, Bhokta, Maheshwara, that is the witness, permitter, master, enjoyer, and Ishvara, all supreme. He is residing within our heart. And if we realize that His presence, if we look at Him, if we seek for His guidance, then our life will be very smooth. And the result of knowledge also, Bhagavan is mentioning in 24th verse, that is, if anybody understands the cause of bondage, this Prakriti, Purushaha and their interaction and the cause of bondage, then he will be able to get liberation. And the process of liberation is this, O Arjuna: Dhyana Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, Karma Yoga, that is Dhyana, Jnana and Karma. But the base process is Upasana, that comes from Shravanam. So 25 and 26th verse, these two verses, 25 and 26, Bhagavan describes these things. That this is the way to liberation. Also here we can say to know the Lord, to know the super soul within. The process. So with this we have come to the end of today's class, and the last section of this chapter we will discuss in our next class. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for joining.